Well, good evening, First Baptist Church of Jasper, Georgia. Welcome to Wednesday night study. And for this week and the week after Thanksgiving, we are going to be talking about two shocking sayings of Jesus. Things that Jesus said that just kind of leave a scratch in our head. And so, Jesus makes a lot of comments that turns people's heads, that pushes back on wisdom of the day or of theology of the day. But these are just two kind of off-the-wall sayings that at first I think will just leave us scratching our head. And so I invite you tonight to look at, we're going to look at a passage in Luke. It's Luke chapter 14. And this is just two verses, verses 25 and 26. If you have the scriptures with you, if you'd like to open them up, and as you read them, you might remember these passages, but I want you to read it like you're reading it or hearing it for the first time. So sometimes with familiarity comes contempt. We read something and we just become a little bit more callous to it. But just I invite you to read it for the first time. So here we go. Shocking, okay? Now the large crowds were traveling with him, meaning Jesus, and he turned and said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brother and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple." What? Let's read that again. Hate? Jesus is giving them permission to hate. Let's read it. Now large crowds were traveling with him, and he turned and he said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple." Whoa, now that's kind of wild. It's, Jesus makes a lot of statements in the scriptures and in the Gospels about love and concern for their neighbor and for even their enemy. And in this passage, you cannot be a disciple without hating mother, father, wife, brother, sister, children. This is scandalous. This is scandalous for Jesus to give them permission to hate. Is Jesus contradicting himself here in his message? How do you hear this passage, the shocking saying of Jesus? What do you think? I don't know. As you read it, it makes you kind of squirm a little bit. So what is he saying here? He's moving with a crowd to Jerusalem. And as he's moving to them, he begins to talk with them about the cost of discipleship. And he begins to give them a framework. And he says the first thing of this framework is to hate your family, which is kind of odd. And if you fail to do this, you can't follow Jesus. Well, if we look at another passage of Scripture in Matthew, and it makes you wonder if Matthew and Luke were drawing from the same source here. I don't know, because there's a lot of crossover between the two passages. In Matthew chapter 10, verses 37 through 38, it says, "Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me." "To those who find life will lose it, and to those who lose their life for my sake will find it." So it's a bit easier to hear this over here, this passage in Matthew, than it is in Luke. That it's not as shocking. Jesus in this passage is giving the followers, people who are listening to him, a little bit more permission, not to use the word hate, but to say you can't love their family more than Jesus. So if they were drawing from the same source, Luke uses some very strong language here, opposed to what Matthew does. And the demand is just a little bit harsher, I guess you would say. Maybe he's just trying to show a sense of seriousness to this, but let's look at the context. During the first century, a lot of new converts to the way, as it was called then, faced a lot of conflict with their families. There was a lot of suspicion in the ancient world and in the Roman world toward this new faith tradition. And within Judaism, everyone was skeptical, can't talk tonight, of who this Jesus was, what he was about. There was a lot of rumors, there was a lot of misconceptions about it because it was so new and a lot of people didn't know much about it, that there was a lot of angry and tearful conflict that happened amongst families when someone within a family pulled away and said that they wanted to be a follower of Jesus. And pretty much at those times, a lot of relationships were severed. And if they weren't severed, they were really strained. So there are a lot of stories, a lot of pictures often of these tearful conflicts that are happening amongst people who are walking away, they're having to walk away from their family to follow Jesus. So this section of Luke, this verse 25 and 26 are one of the first demands of what it means to be a disciple. And there are a few others here, but they began to talk more in metaphor. But Luke's command that Jesus gives a command often to love, and to love everyone, to love your enemy, and to do good to your enemy. But to hate the family doesn't necessarily maybe mean harm. Maybe what Jesus in this passage is talking about is that their devotion, their obedience to Jesus has to have more importance, has to have more value than their love and their commitment to their family. So that means that Jesus has to be a higher priority to their family, and that's where this tearful, this conflict, this anger that often is bubbling up. And so Jesus in a way probably is resonating with these people to say, I bet you right now you probably feel this way towards your family, or your family feels this way towards you because you're walking away from them. Because the type of commitment that Jesus is calling for here is a commitment that means that could translate to a family that they love Jesus more than they love the family. So this choice to follow Jesus looks like to a family that they're hating their family. Or to move just physically or emotionally away from that commitment to a family. Because, sometimes we are too attached to a family member. It's an unhealthy way. Not that we don't love and care for deeply those family people within our family, but there's sometimes it can be unhealthy, just like in any other relationship, where we're driven to please that family member in an unhealthy way, where that family member is the center of our world. And really it should be that God is the center of our world, that Jesus is. That family might be controlling us. And that we're motivated to please that family member opposed to pleasing God. And so we hold back. We don't live the way that we feel like we should. So we have to begin to learn how to, and maybe Jesus right here in this passage of telling them, of this commitment that they're having is that they are to create healthy boundaries. As family members maybe push back, try to control them, or as they try to think about pleasing this family member, that begin to say, Jesus is saying, you're following me now. We have a different, we live at a different standard. So maybe Jesus is getting at this. We're just trying to work through this passage here, is that family is important. We take care of, we value that family that we have. We love that family. But sometimes if that family is causing us to keep from following Jesus, that we have to pull back. We have to pull away from that family member because our most important relationship is our relationship with God. And if we learn to love God first and put God first in our life, God begins to help us see how we need to love and care for and not neglect our family. And that our commitment to Jesus is first, which is something that's hard, something that we have to learn about our whole life. Because sometimes we can let other relationships take first priority. So maybe that's what this passage means, is that Jesus was trying to relate to to his new followers, of saying, I understand you probably right now feel this way toward people in your family because you're choosing to follow Jesus. You're choosing to follow him, and that it's causing a lot of pain and hurt, and you initially probably might have some strong feelings toward these people who are, trying to pull you away from this commitment to Jesus. Go back, read it some more, wrestle with the passage. It does kind of help to have that in Matthew in chapter 10 to kind of go back to kind of say maybe that this is where Luke is, getting this from, is that that our love for Jesus is first, and that our love for our family is good, but it doesn't need to control or dominate or be more important than our love for Jesus, our love for God. So shocking it is to say that, that Jesus talks about, hey, I died. So I don't think he's necessarily contradicting himself here. I think he's relating to his new followers, saying, I understand you probably have some hard feelings right now, and we all have hard feelings with our family at times. So, shocking. This is shocking. So, 2 weeks, take a week off because it's Thanksgiving week next week, but in 2 weeks, we're going to look at another shocking saying of Jesus. So as you go through and you're doing your daily or weekly readings, you find something and go, wow, that is shocking. Because Jesus says some things that make you kind of scratch your head a little bit. So thanks for joining me this week, and hope you have a good night, and we'll see you again in a few weeks. All righty.